For this unit, we're going to talk a little bit about culinary measurements and moving from basic measurements into more professional style of measuring. So, when we talk about measuring, up to now, we've been dealing with basic recipes and we've been using volume measurements. So, a volume is measured by filling something, generally a cup. So, you have liquid cups and you have dry cups. You could also use teaspoons, tablespoons, ladles, and scoops. These are all how much food product you can fit inside of that vessel. These also include fluid ounces. This is not the most accurate, particularly as we've covered for certain ingredients like flour or powdered sugar that you need to leave light and leave some air. If somebody measures flour or powdered sugar and packs it into the cup, they can put too much or more in there. So if you're making one batch of cookies, it's not a big deal. But if you're making a huge stand mixer full and you need cup after cup after cup, and you put a little bit more every single time, then that's really going to alter your recipe. When we're dealing with weight, we are talking about measuring the weight of an ingredient. So this is done by using a scale. Balance scales or baker's scales or spring scales, as you can see pictured here in the bottom. These were introduced to you in the last unit on equipment. Digital scales are what we will be using. They are more accurate and they're a little easier to use in the kitchen. These you can alter, you can change to measure by pound, ounces, or even grams. This is the most accurate way to measure because weight is always weight as long as you're using your scale correctly, which is not difficult to do. When we talk about equivalence, so the term equivalent, what that means is that certain measurements are equal to other measurements. For example, 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts. 1 gallon also equals 8 pints. If I needed a gallon of something and I had a pint measuring vessel, then I could measure that 8 times. And you can break that all the way down by ounces, tablespoons, teaspoons, cups, pints, quarts. You do not have to memorize these. Once you cook for long periods of time, then you will find that some of these you'll just remember. The one that I do ask my students to remember because we use it all the time is 3 of the teaspoons equal 1 of the tablespoon. When you're looking at your measuring spoons, you don't have partial tablespoons because a teaspoon is a partial tablespoon, unlike other measurements. So 3 teaspoons, 1 tablespoon, that is something that you do need to know. I also have memorized that 1 stick of butter is half a cup. That's just something that comes to me naturally. It's also 8 tablespoons. And so I've used butter a lot. I've measured butter a lot. And so that just kind of comes naturally. We're also going to do some very simple recipe conversions. So, a recipe conversion means that you have a yield, which is how much or how many a recipe is going to make. That's my original yield. And I want to alter that and scale that recipe so that I have a new yield. And that's going to involve a conversion factor. So the conversion factor means that every ingredient in the recipe is going to be multiplied by that conversion factor. And then that'll tell me how much I need now to get that new yield. So you take the original ingredient quantity, you multiply that by the conversion factor, and then that tells you what your new quantity is for your scaled recipe. And you get the conversion factor by multiplying dividing the original by the new. And so, for example, if my original recipe gave me 8 servings and now I need 30 servings, and I'm going to take the new yield divided by the old yield, and that's going to tell me how many times the old yield goes into the new yield, and then that's what I multiply by. It seems a little confusing. It's really not. We'll do some simple ones here in foods and nutrition. And then in the advanced classes, you'll do that a little bit more because we make food for like 100 people. So pretty simple.